Uncle Fezzi's cabinet shop, I guess, furniture building. I don't know what this is. Long story short, and none of my stories are ever short. A buddy of mine scored a tournament-size shuffleboard table out of a bar that burnt down. The table playing surface is 3 inches thick by 20 inches wide by 20 feet long rock maple. And it weighs probably about 500 pounds. And actually there's probably another 100 pounds of hardware, metal hardware to straighten it out underneath of it. I'm not fixing that because the rest of that's what he scored. And he wants to put it in his garage. Fantastic, right? Well, the original base that was in the fire was completely trashed. And hopefully the board's not trashed, but that's not my problem. So he asked me if I would build a base for his new shuffleboard playing surface. And I said, dude, it's right up my alley, I'm going to do that. Well, truth be told, I'm actually about halfway through the project, but I decided, quite frankly, I need a little bit of content, and I decided I wanted to show one aspect of, maybe 2 or 3 aspects of how much work has to go into one of these, one little part of the project, which is a major part of the project. And the major part of the project is actually making the legs to support this 500-pound chunk of wood. So I ran through my head multiple different times of what am I going to make this out of. And I came to the conclusion that I was going to make it out of MDF, medium density fiberboard. Why am I going to make it out of MDF? MDF sucks. You can't use it. It sucks. It's junk. Blah, 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 blah. There's a couple reasons I came to this conclusion. One is cost. Now, I could make this entire thing out of quarter sawn oak, quarter sawn solid oak. And not for nothing, it would probably cost $5,000 in materials. Not to mention, I have to find it. And there's about 30% waste when you're dealing with raw lumber. You've all seen me run shit through my milling process. It would be hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Because remember, this board, well, here's the other trick, is a standard board is 22 or 23 feet long. We're tight on space. So this board can only be 21 feet max. So that's kind of a hairy issue, right? So one of the things I did is I shrunk the size of the board down. I don't know what I did with it. I actually printed a weight to make sure this was going to work. But I narrowed the board by about 1.5 inches on either side, and I narrowed the board, and I shortened the length of the board to 21 feet, give or take a little bit. So there will be plenty of room for the weights to fall off into the trough. It's not really an issue. We really need that extra 2 feet of space on either side of the board or either end of the board. Again, why did I decide to do this out of MDF? Cost was the number one discerning factor. A sheet of MDF, 3/4 inch MDF, a 4x8 sheet of that stuff, is only about $50 a sheet. If I was to do it out of birch plywood, it'd been $100 a sheet. Of like cabinet grade birch plywood, it'd be about $100 a sheet. And I don't necessarily think that the birch plywood was a great option because I'd have to trim it anyway. The edges of plywood looks like shit. The other is dimensional stability. You get a lot of shit out of people. Oh, MDF fucks up. It does. If it gets wet, if it gets moist, if it's in a really humid environment and it's untreated, yes, it's terrible. It will disintegrate. If a dog pisses on it, it'll fuck it up. There's many ways that MDF is a poor product choice. Now, for the pros, cost. It's a lot cheaper. And I have already used 4 sheets of MDF for this project. And everything's all cut up, so I don't really have a whole lot to show for what I have, but I've gone through 4 sheets of MDF. to make the individual pieces and parts of the project. So I've already made the sideboards. The sideboards are all glued up. They're ready. They're made. And I cut all of the parts and pieces, which I'm going to show in a minute, of the legs assemblies themselves. So let me go grab those. So here's the leg. This is one of 12 because I decided normal board has 5. Well, the board can have as many legs as it wants. It can look like a fucking centipede if you wanted to. But generally they either have 3 or 5 legs. I chose to go with 6. Why? Because I'm building this board in 3 pieces. So there'll be 2 end caps and then a centerpiece. So I need something to support, to act as a joint in the middle of this centerpiece. Because I'm going to have 2 joints in it. Instead of just 1 joint, I'm going to have 2. The board itself is supported by the legs. The troughs on the side, the tray, doesn't support anything. It's literally just a piece of furniture. It doesn't do anything. Everything is supported by the legs. So, what did I do with the legs? I found my weight. So what did I do with the legs? Well, experience has told me or taught me that when you glue MDF together as a laminate, not only does it become ungodly heavy, which is what we want, it becomes incredibly strong and thick, right? So this is a cross section of the laminate that I made. So I took 3 sheets of MDF, 3/4 inch MDF, and I glued them together, which gave me like 2 1/4 inches, I think. Can't do math in my head. Not very good for a carpenter, right? So this is the leg assembly. So this is 1/2 of 1 leg assembly. So I glued the whole thing together. I notched it out. Okay, so the side rails are going to fit in here. I'll show that part later when it gets assembled. It'll all make sense then. I ran a dado down the center. Actually, I had to run 2 dados down the center. And then I put these oak caps on the bottom of the boards. Now, why did I use oak? 2 reasons. One, this is going in a garage. So there is 100% chance of this thing getting some moisture at the bottom of it, and that will be a problem. So I used oak. So we got 3/4 of an inch of oak. The other thing is I'm using these hammer-in threaded inserts, and then I'm going to be putting these leveling feet on the bottom of it, or the leveling legs on the bottom. So these leveling legs are actually going to bring the board up to the regulation height, which is 33.5 inches at the rail. And that'll give me that much space between the floor, the concrete floor, and the board. And then if for some reason moisture defies gravity, which it always does, I've yet to figure out how water defies gravity, but if it was to run up into the wood here, it'll hit the oak first. And the oak is a nice hard, it's a nice hard deal. And they're held in with screws, but they're actually not fastened. So if we need to change one out, we can't. They're fastened with screws, but they're not glued. Unlike everything else on this project. I am going to bolt the sideboards together, but the entire leg assemblies, with the exception of a couple pins, are going to be completely glued together. Why did I completely glue them together? When you're dealing with MDF, even using the specialized screws, everyone has put together an MDF filing cabinet or a bookshelf or some shitty piece of furniture that you bought at Walmart, and it always has this crazy hardware that always strips and fucks up, and it's just a nightmare, right? Because hardware in MDF is problematic. You can get away with pins through the face of it as long as you stay away from the edge, but you cannot pin through the edge of it. It'll split every single time. I don't care what you do with it. Even if you pre-drill the holes, and I did pre-drill these holes, but I used the correct type of drill bit to do it. When you're pre-drilling holes in MDF, you have to use a tapered bit. And this is a tapered and countersunk bit. So when the screw, which is tapered, goes into the hole, the threads don't force the wood apart. It works relatively well. I'm also using screws that are specific for MDF. They have a fucking name. I don't remember the name of it, but they're for MDF. That's what they're made for. You can buy, they call them cabinet screws. So that's what I used just to hold these in. Everything else is going to get glued together, and I'm going to show the gluing process. So now remember, I had to make 12 of these. I had to make 12 individual legs, 6 sets, or 6. I had to make 6 chairs, so I need, or 6 legs, so I needed this. All right, let's get to it, because I don't really feel like making this video, because I just don't. But I need to show this because people don't generally understand how much work goes into a custom piece of furniture. I'm already probably 30 hours into this project, and that is just measuring and cutting and gluing shit together. Now this is the last leg, no pun intended. This is the last leg assembly that I'm going to build. So, you know, I am about halfway through the project. I estimated this project was going to be between 40 and 50 hours, not including paint time. That's the other thing. This is going to be painted. It's going to be properly painted. It's going to be sanded, primed, and then I'm going to apply probably 3 coats of a high quality exterior grade latex paint on the outside of this. I'm going to buy good shit for it because why not, right? And you know, if the MDF is painted, then it should be dimensionally stable, which is the absolute #1 important part of the shuffleboard. Any project really, but the most important part of a shuffleboard table, like a pool table, is that it needs to be dimensionally stable. Lumber, hardwood straight lumber, is not dimensionally stable. My workbench, which I have a video of that I built years ago, I built out of MDF. And not only does it god-awfully heavy, like it's going to take 3 guys to move it when I die, it hasn't moved. You can throw a level on that thing and a straight edge on it, and the top, with the exception of where I drilled a hole in it, and another spot where I glued something to it, the top of that surface is still dead flat. You see that table in every single one of my videos, this one being an exception. Yeah, well, that's good enough. The first thing I'm doing when before I start any of this project, before I start this, is I'm actually masking off. I'm masking the ends off. Now, why am I doing that? Well, a couple of reasons. One is I intend to oil the oak. This is going to be trimmed in oak and painted teal, because that's my customer's favorite sports team. His college alma mater. Their colors are teal and bronze. So I'm going to paint the table, or the table is going to be painted teal, and all the oak is going to be just oiled. This is cheap red oak from Home Depot, which isn't really bad. It's not cheap. It's actually fucking expensive. The oak trim costs more than the goddamn wood to build the project. But I really want to trim it for a lot of reasons. The biggest reason being anywhere that anybody's going to put their hands, anywhere they're going to touch, it's much nicer to touch a nice piece of oiled oak than it is a piece of painted MDF. And it'll be a lot easier to keep some people's fingerprints off of it. And oily shit. I guess I should have showed that. We'll do it this way. So, in my previous life, I was an automobile painter. Everybody knows that. This tape, I am a tape diva. 100% Tape Diva. This is not green frog tape from Home Depot. This is Scotch 233 Plus automotive or auto painting tape, and this shit is really sticky. It'll stick to almost anything except this stuff, the parchment paper, and it can get wet and stays sticky and doesn't come apart. It stays forever, and I can leave these parts taped up for weeks, and when I go to untape them, there won't be any tape residue on anything. It's fantastic stuff. So if you ever have a really serious taping project or a really serious masking project and you are sick and tired of that shitty blue fucking painter's tape, this is the stuff for you. Okay, so the other reason is these have holes in them. In a minute, you're going to see why we want these holes clogged, or why we want those holes stopped up. Okay, I have all my parts and all my clamps and everything laid out on the bench in front of me because this is the 6th one of these that I've put together. And I'm getting kind of good at it. Alright. I am using Titebond 2. I am not using Titebond 3. I used Titebond 3 for part of the project and I decided I didn't like it. Because Titebond 3 is waterproof once it dries. And it doesn't really absorb great into the MDF, and as you're going to see in a second here, I need to be able to wipe this shit off. The Titebond 3, when you get it on a surface, it doesn't sand very nice either. When you get it on an exterior surface, you have to wipe it off immediately, and the Titebond 3 creates like a little sheen on the wood that you can't get rid of. Ask me how I know. Oh, the other most important part of this. This is the bottom stretcher. And we're going to tape that off because we're going to see it in a minute. I guess this is going to be a really long video. It's going to take me a lot longer. It doesn't take me as long to do this when I'm not narrating or futzing with the camera. So this is just saran wrap. I know. I'm not using the rosin paper because it's a pain in the ass to cut. I could just put a piece of it. I could just put rosin paper. I forget what it's called. I could use rosin paper, but the plastic wrap works great. Ow, come on, fucker. There we go. I used to hang around with a guy, bald guy actually, used to keep a razor blade behind his ear. It was pretty impressive. I'm not that daring. And I don't think my head's that sticky. Alright. The plastic wrap works perfectly for this. But you could use anything to tape it off. You could use anything other than newspaper, because the glue, well, that's the other thing here. The glue actually will go through, sometimes will go through your masking material and then glue itself to what you're trying to protect. Ask me how I know. Alright, newspaper is only good for lining bird cages with. And even that's questionable. The bird might become a leftist. Okay, so we're going to set that aside for a second. So the first thing we're going to do here is put an ungodly amount of glue down. I watched another YouTuber. He says, we're paying homage to the glue god. Well, that's exactly what we're doing here, is we're paying homage to the glue god. Especially with MDF. Because MDF will suck this glue up like a plant that you haven't watered in a month. I was trying to come up with some kind of sexual innuendo, but it didn't work. So we're slopping this shit in here, an excessive amount actually, because it's MDF. If I let this shit sit, you know, what it's going to do at 100%, this glue that I'm putting on here is going to absorb into the MDF, which is exactly what you want, because then it creates an even stronger bond. You're not going to break the glue bond. You're not going to break the glue bond. You're not. But what you will do is that the MDF can be damaged. It is soft, but once it's painted, it's just like wrapping a piece of styrofoam, or not styrofoam, or yeah, well, we'll just say styrofoam. It's like wrapping foam with epoxy and fiberglass. Once you paint this stuff, once you glue it, once you paint it, it becomes harder and harder. It gets more and more hard. MDF is also nice and stiff in small pieces. All right, now part one. I may have to move the cameras, and we're going to slop up both sides. I know I'm using an excessive amount of glue. I've actually put there's over half a gallon of glue in this project, and I'm not done yet because I like glue and I know how to use it now. Everybody complains about glue. You know, the number one problem with glue is the idiot that's using it. Nobody lets glue dry long enough. Nobody knows how to prep a surface. And then they complain when the glue fails. I'm guilty of this. For decades, I didn't understand how CA glue worked. Now, I can glue a lot of things together, not just my fingers. Okay, now, that's the first part. Now these are the very bottom. Oh, there's the other thing I got going on here, just off camera, is a bucket of water. Is a large bucket of water with a couple rags in it. Now, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna slop this end up, and I am being sloppy. And you'll see why when all this glue starts to come out in every orifice that it possibly can. And that's what you want. You want the glue to squish out. You know, you can put an excessive amount in, and then it's wasteful. But if my choice is wasting some glue and having to clean it up, or my shit falling apart because the glue joint's dry, guess what? A bucket of water and rags and a couple minutes, jackass, are pretty easy. You know, that's a fairly easy thing to do. Is just to wipe it off. You know. And if you slop it on everything, you ensure that you're good, right? You got it on everything. Glue, every surface has got glue on it. Do you have glue? Oh, that's the other thing. This isn't the good glue. This isn't like the glue I used the other day with the bar stools. This is you know what? It's actually, I just realized that I'm having a how to rehab your bar video series. Ah, there you go. Uncle Fezzi's Barroom Olympics. Yeah, we're really slopping this up. Now, what's this? Well, this is a filler, because it was a hell of a lot easier to run this dado all the way down the center of this piece of wood. Oh, that's a little troublesome. It was a hell of a lot easier to run this dado down the whole length of this than it was to try to notch these pieces and run half a dado. Bag that noise. It's MDF, it's getting painted. This isn't, again, this isn't quarter sawn oak. It's MDF. And we're painting it. If it wasn't being painted, I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have used a different type of joinery, entirely different type of joinery. Actually, I probably would have dovetailed it. But we're not doing that. I would have used pegs and dovetails. But this is, which again, there's no fasteners. It's all joinery, and it's all glue and joinery. And actually with dovetails, it's more just the joint itself. The glue is just secondary. The glue in a dovetail is there only to hold the parts together until moisture in the air makes the parts swell and hold themselves tight. That's why the Japanese don't use metal hardware on anything. They don't do it because they're crafty guys. They do it, or these great artisans, which they are, but they do it because Japan is so humid that metal hardware fucks everything up. And a joint, nice tight joint, nice tight joinery trumps screws every single time, especially in a moist environment. And in this particular case, what we're doing here is creating a homogeneous part. Wow, that's a $20 fucking word right there, homogeneous. All right, I'm gonna do that, and that, and that, and that. And like I said, I am slopping this shit on. And that, and you're gonna see why I wrap this in a second. I'm not done with that just yet. And we're gonna slide that into there like that. Oh, it's beautiful. All right, now we're gonna put this up thusly. And it's doing the Watusi. That's to be expected. The wibbly wobblies, because it's still kind of wet, or everything's, all my glue is still goopy. All right, we're gonna throw some clamps on this, and then we're gonna check it for square, and then we're gonna put a couple more clamps on it, and then we're gonna check it for square again. And then we're really gonna put the clamps on it. I actually have a pretty cool clamp I'm gonna show in a second. No, that's not really cool, it's just it's just what you should do when you have certain things. You also notice here I have a hammer, and I haven't used it yet because I don't really want to. That's actually what this is for too. This is a beating stuff, but I changed my mind and decided that the only thing I like to beat is my meat, and definitely not my wood. Wood. All right. And that is a large bucket. That's a 2-gallon bucket or 3-gallon bucket, and it is filled to the top with water because I'm wiping off a lot of glue, and I really need the glue diluted. It's kind of freaky as my fingers are starting to turn yellow, which is probably unhealthy, but yeah, this is just old cows. Oh yeah, kids, if you didn't know that, glue used to be made from racehorses that didn't pay. Alright, that's why there's a cow on an Elmer's glue bottle. Okay, it's not cows anymore, sadly. You can still buy it, it's called hide glue, but we're not using hide glue. Alright, now I've got these monster clamps that I bought at Harbor Freight. Actually, I might have got, these are Harbor Freight. We're going to throw one in here. This is just to keep this thing from wiggling and wongling around. Sadly, that didn't show up on video, but we're working on our clamping here. Actually, no. Okay. I got a big ass pile of clamps right out of your view. Actually, I should check that. Oh no, it's all on camera. All right. So we got one clamp down there, and then I'm going to put another clamp up here. You can never have enough clamps. I've used every single. My buddy came over to the house one day, and he's like, "Oh my God, you have more clamps than anybody I've ever seen." Actually, his exact statement was, "Well, you have more clamps than Carter's got liver pills." I never quite understood that, and I've only ever heard 4 other people say that, my father being one of them. And Lampert. Yeah, that's fine. A couple of these I've had to shim a little bit with some paper before anybody says anything. The truth of the matter is, what's wood? What's paper made out of? Wood. And when I say shim, I'm talking. Fuck. Like that. It's cardstock, and we're talking like 2 or 3 pieces of cardstock just slid into this joint here. That's perfectly kosher. Like I said, wood. You take a bunch of pieces of paper together and glue them with this glue. It's pretty tough stuff. Now to my fancy clamp here. So this filler has been popping out a tad because the glue, the joint is so tight. My joints are waist tight. My rhymes will floor you. Okay, so the joint is actually so tight that the glue forces, you can see all the glue that's coming out of there. The glue keeps forcing the joints apart. It's a very common issue, especially with tight joints. You want tight joints. You absolutely want tight joints. You want all this glue to squish out. You don't want glue as your joint. That's like when you're welding, you want your parts to fit. The weld is just to hold them together. You're not using what we used to call gap wire. You want your shit to fit. And these fit phenomenally, actually. I have my dado is dialed in. Yeah, look at all that glue coming out of there. The bottom one isn't doing this because the bottom one has a vent. This does not have a vent, so the glue has to go somewhere. Where does the glue want to go? Well, it wants to go out. And it wants to push this piece out. So you clamp this in, squeeze all the glue out, and your problem is solved. Now this joint here, this filler, does sit a little proud. I knew that doing it, and I'm going to leave it. I am not going to sand it off. I'm going to use it as a kind of a design element. Son of a bitch. I had glued this together. Fucking hot glue screwed me. It's kind of what I expected. Doesn't matter. Hot glue failed me. Alright, so we're cleaning this all. This glue gets cleaned up. We're going to press this one together because it has the same issues. The glue is forcing the wood out. It's pressure, it's like, Charlie, you always ask me how a bullet came out of a gun. Well, right before Augustus Gloop came shooting out of that tube, there was a considerable amount of pressure behind him. Well, this is exactly what's going on with this. And it squishes right in there. Oh yeah, it's coming out. That's exactly what I want. And of course this stuff is like pus yellow. It's like squeezing a zit. Alright. And slide it down. And I have this pad on here because nothing will ruin MDF faster than a clamp. Especially a C-clamp, a hard one. So I'm spreading the pressure out over the entire width. Or over a wider area so I don't damage the part. I'm not against putting in a little shim here or there, or putting in a little filler here and there, but I don't want to be doing 30 hours of body work before I paint this thing. I just don't. I'm also painting it with latex. I'm not painting it with car paint. I considered painting this with car paint because I've had really, really, really good success using automotive refinishing products on MDF. But there's a budget constraint with that. In that I would probably have $1,000 worth of primer because all my shit is bad, so I'd have to buy all new stuff. And I don't want to do that. Not to mention, as everybody knows, car painting made me sick, physically ill. The mental illness was just a side benefit of automotive painting, or automotive refinishing. Okay, now we've squished that together, and surface tension And the joint, the tightness of the joint, now that I've forced out all the extra glue, is going to hold those in place. That's another thing too, is I'm trying to do the least amount of sanding as possible on this project. I do have a couple spots where I burned it with the saw, because watching me run an 8-foot long piece of MDF through my table saw is actually pretty humorous. I should have videoed that by myself. That is another video that I'm going to shoot. This particular project is going to require the building of a single-use tool for installation of this, which should be pretty interesting. I need to build a load leveler, a fairly large one, to lift this, to get it in place. The idea of having to wrangle 8 drunks to help me install this is not good. I can wrangle 2. I cannot wrangle 8, and that's how many people it took to pick this playing surface up the first time. Okay, I'm going to move the camera. All right, so everybody's favorite tool, the nail gun, is going to come into play in a minute, but it's not nearly as important as you think it is. Before I go too far with this, I need to check the square. I want to check it for square this way and this way. Of course, I laid all my clamps on top of my fucking. There we go. Which I now also have glue all over. So I got a problem right off the bat. Okay. Now, why do I have this problem? That's a great question. I only have clamps on one side. So, we're going to put a clamp on this side. And bring it right around. Now, we're clamped up, we're square, we're nice and square this way. I mean, that's about as square as anything I ever build. And then I'm going to go square that way. That is the other reason that I chose to use MDF for this project, because dimensionally, thickness-wise, unless you smash it or drop it on the corner, or beat it with a hammer, dimensionally, thickness-wise, it's always the same. So that's a tremendous advantage. That's a tremendous advantage. Actually, I'm going to let this a little. And then I got to recheck it. The other thing is, once this glue all dries, we're going to have a homogeneous part. It's going to be one piece. One giant piece of MDF. And I have one clamp at the bottom of the stringer, and I have one clamp at the top of the stringer. Oh yeah, baby. Check it again. Twisting is an issue, especially if your table saw is fucked up where you try to sand to the shit square. It never fucking works. If you don't cut MDF square, yeah, you might as well just not bother. It's got to be cut square. I actually tuned my table saw up before I did this project, knowing how many cuts I was going to have to make. I probably made 100+ cuts to get this the way I want it to be. All right. I'm actually kind of wasting my time with this because, not for nothing, this glue's already begun to set, and the only way for me to get this thing apart would be I'd have to destroy some of it to get it apart. Once you put glue on MDF, you're riding the snake you're riding the snake. Now, I did have a little problem with these. So these have to be trimmed to fit. I did that on purpose, kind of. The other thing is when you squish, see, that's actually a great example. See how that little corner came off? Because I forced it. MDF doesn't like to be forced. It doesn't like to be beat. It doesn't like to be manhandled. Once it's all done, once it's all said and done, you're fine. But you need to take a wee bit off that, about 30 seconds. Drop my pen. Oh, I do that every time. One of these days, I'll use a pencil. Another thing you want to keep handy, and here it is a hardboard and hardwood sanding block, just to knock some of the, sometimes you get a little burr, especially when you do a little teeny tiny cut like I just did. That, I think, is going to be fine. Yep. Okay. Now's when it gets even sloppier. And this is why I wrap this up. Because the first one of these I didn't mask off the bottom stretcher. And yeah, that was a nightmare. Because I got glue everywhere. Which I kind of didn't anticipate. Why would I anticipate glue going everywhere when glue goes everywhere all the time? And glue's almost as bad as dog shit. Actually, I think glue could be worse than dog shit. The only thing worse than that is anti-seize. That is worse than dog shit, and that gets on every fucking thing. Okay. Alright, now we got a nice coating on that. We're gonna put a nice coating on this. Move that out of the way. That's asking for trouble. Ah, look at that. Right in the glue. That clamp is also in the way. Gonna move that clamp. I need that one that just fell on the floor though. So normally I use a glue bottle, but I'm using so much glue that I decided that I was going to use one of these little cups I have left over from my glass blowing. I used to buy Frit in them. They're pretty nice little plastic jars. They should be for the price of Frit. All right. I never understood why Frit was so expensive. It's literally ground up glass. It's the ends and shit that fall away, but boy, they like to charge you a lot for it. Okay, now, hopefully this is just tight enough that friction will hold it in place, or else I'll have to put a clamp on it while I flip it around. We'll see. We'll see if gravity catches me, which it usually does. Oh. You gotta get it all. Okay. All right. Nice and sloppy. Everybody likes a sloppy joint. It's a nice tight joint. And a nice slick hole. There we go. That's your hand, not a hammer, Mr. Feathers. Okay. All right. Quote John Province on that. Alright, that goes there, that goes there. Wipe that off. Wipe that off. Wait till you see how much glue comes out of this. Alright, we're going to move our glue container so we don't spill it all over the place like I just did. Okay. Now I will admit, this is the absolute last one of these I've done, so I've gotten pretty good at them. And I need more glue. I actually did do one of these and didn't fit at first. Boy, that was a mess. Why can I see that? Enjoy my armpit, kids. Much better. That I can see. Let's see if I screwed it up. Yep. I guess I should have cut it on the line, huh? Oh, you bastard. I'm literally less than a 32nd of an inch off. And now I'll be a 32nd of an inch over. Yep. You rotten motherfucker. Oh well. That's okay. I'm going to show you how we're going to fix that. Or not. So, interesting thing about glue, and I should mention this, is just because the gap looks like it's filled now, the chances of it being filled later are 0. Glue has a tendency to lose about 90% of its volume once it dries. So, alright, get that in there. A little more. Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah, you can see it's getting all over that stringer. Yeah, it was quite the mess the first time. As a matter of fact, about 2 seconds into the project, when I saw it getting all over the stringer, I threw a rag over it because I didn't want to clean all that glue off. I ended up having to do a good bit of cleanup, but live and learn, right? If you haven't made a mistake, you haven't learned anything that day. And again, like I said, this is going to be, once this is glued and glued together, it's never going anywhere. I defy somebody to break a glue joint on a piece of MDF using the proper glue. I broke it. Literally just today I broke multiple glue joints using hot glue to hold something together just temporarily. I knew it was going to come apart. I just didn't realize it was going to come apart that easy. This thing here, I hot glued this to my clamp. Well, believe it or not, the wood side failed first, and then the wood side failed. I figured the metal side would fail first, but it didn't. Hot glue has its uses. I do use it a good bit. The spinster's friend. But it has limited uses, mostly for wreaths to hang on your door and other stuff like that. Okay. Kind of like that. All right, I'm going to grab the clamp I dropped. Oh, I don't need that one. Okay. Now, we're going to put 3 clamps on this for a minute, and then we're going to do something that I don't like to do, but I am going to do because the nature of what I'm building and the nature of what this is and how these are going to go in. Oh, my clamps have seen better days. There we go. So, I don't know if it's showing up on camera, but what's happening here is the way these clamps works. They have a tendency to make stuff slide. C clamps don't do that as much, but C clamps are a lot harder to use. So I use these, and these are great clamps, but you do kind of have to help them every once in a while. And what we're going to do right now is help the clamp. We're going to whip out everybody's favorite tool, the air finish nailer, and we're going to put a couple finish nails in it just to hold it in place. You see all this glue coming out of here? That's exactly what we want. So you can't see it on camera, I know that, but this whole thing is nice and smooth and flat. on this joint here. So this joint to here is nice and smooth and flat over here, but it's not over here. As a matter of fact, it's already moved in the amount of time it took me to talk about it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run some 1.5" finish nail. You know you can adjust these so they don't blast in your face. We're gonna run an 1.5" finish nail there. And then we're gonna run over here. We're gonna come over here. You can see when I push up on it, you can actually physically see that, it's physically moving. It's sliding around because of the clamp. Now we're gonna The only reason I'm using these nails or any fasteners at all is because I'm driving through the face of the product. If I was trying to go in this way, no bueno. No worky. Well, it just straight up, flat out does not work. And never do it, because you'll hate yourself for doing it. Because you will fuck your entire project up, I promise it. Same with putting screws in. You never want to do that. You're better off just clamping it and gluing it, always, with MDF. I learned this the hard way by ruining a lot of projects early on, actually mostly jigs. I use MDF almost exclusively for jigs and furniture, like the carcasses of furniture. If you watch my speaker video, my speakers are actually built out of MDF, and then they're clad with they're clad with cherry, 3/4 inch cherry, which I could have just used veneer, but that was another option, was to veneer this stuff. And quite frankly, the cost of the veneer was, again, excessively high. I don't want to say this is a budget project, but it kind of is. And it's a budget project because I'm making it a budget project, because I want it to be a budget project. I don't want this to cost my customer $1 million for something that, while he is going to use it, I know he is, because he's got a gold medal in Barroom Olympics. It's kind of like having a pool table in your house. You use it when friends are over, but your chances of you using it when nobody's around is kind of slim. I had a pool table. It's turned into a fucking laundry table. Alright. As everyone else I know that has a pool table always turns into a laundry table. That's beautiful. And you can see all this, it's coming off out of here like stalactites, which it's supposed to. It's doing exactly what I want it to do. And you'll notice when I'm pushing the nail gun in, I'm holding the part, because that's another thing that a lot of people don't know. You absolutely have to push this thing down and make sure it's aimed in the direction that you want it to. It's a nail gun. It's called a gun for more than just because it has a trigger and shoots something. Because wherever that nail is pointed is where it goes. And trust me, again, I have fucked up more stuff with nail guns than I care to admit to. I very, very, very rarely use them unless it's something that I absolutely need to do, that needs to be pinned or tacked together. Any of my actual fine furniture, wood glue or wood projects, are all joinery. All joinery with limited number of screws, because screws and fasteners of that nature are inevitably a failure point. All right. Now we're gonna spin this thing around. That, so I don't knock it on the ground. My print is done. That's fantastic, actually. I'm gonna shut that off too. That's actually perfect. Joe! So we have it flipped around. The other thing I have to do is make sure I don't put the nails in the same spot, which I hate to admit I've done that. It's amazing. You can run a teeny tiny little finish nail into a teeny tiny little finish nail. Bingo bango. Done. Took me an hour to assemble that. Well, I yammered on for a little while, so it took me a little bit less than an hour to just assemble it. That doesn't include all the measuring and jig building and whatever. Speaking of jig building, getting jiggy with it. We're going to get jiggy with it in a second here. I'm going to show what I've been making, which just came off the printer, which is going to be a prototype for what's actually going to come off the printer. I have to bolt this thing together. Because I have to bolt it together, I have to bolt the side pieces on. Actually, I don't know if it shows up. Yeah, so I have to bolt the side pieces to this. I have to drill and install 48 bolts. So I have to drill, let's see here, 16. I have to drill 160 holes. Ooh. Yeah, that razor sharp chisel just fell off the bench and caught my leg. Thankfully it was so sharp it didn't cut me. This, my friends, is a drill jig. This is actually not the actual drill jig. It's our drilling template. This is a prototype drilling template, which is going to go like that. And it looks like I'm already fucky. Yep, 100% wrong. Well, that's why we do test pieces. Son of a bitch. You know, I measured this fucker and cut it twice. And it's wrong. Why the fuck is it wrong? I don't know. Back to the drawing board. So the idea behind this thing is, and this is just a test one, is that it's going to go on like that, and then I'm going to drill through it. So it actually wants to be more like that. Or these holes need to be over there. I wonder why they're wrong. I know why they're wrong. Alright, well, back to the drawing board. Thanks for watching. There's going to be a little bit more of this video. I will not be able to video the installation because the customer, I don't want to encroach on the customer's privacy, and I'm going to be too busy that day trying to keep this thing from crashing down and killing me. But that really is irritating. Okay, well, we'll figure out where I screwed that up. Well, back into Fusion. Okay, here we are the next day, and I was correct. I had to go back to the drawing board because I didn't actually dimension the holes correctly in the design in Fusion. I did one side and I forgot to do the other side when I redimensioned the hole. Oops. That's why the other drill form didn't work, or drill template didn't work, but there's the drill template, works just fine. You have to be real careful when drilling MDF because if you push too hard on the drill or you use a bullet point bit, actually the sharper the bit, the worse it happens. You'll blow out the back of the holes. So I actually used a standard like 30 degree, I forget what the angle is. I think it's 30 degrees. Regular twist bit to drill these through, and I was very gentle when I did it, so I didn't get a whole lot of blowout on the backside. So now, I'll have 120 some holes I have to drill. Or, yeah, I figured what I said. A lot of fucking holes. And this is just made out of cheap, this is just made out of PLA silk, actually. But I printed it at 100%, so it should be pretty strong and it should hold up. It only needs to hold up long enough. This is a once and done tool. I might shoot another video today. I haven't decided yet whether of another once and done tool. I know this drill guide is going to get destroyed by the time I'm done drilling these holes, and I don't care. It's, again, once and done. I could have built this out of wood and put metal inserts in it, but quite frankly, it's just not worth it for the time, for what I'm doing here. I guess I should add here, this is these are the legs that are already built, and they're ready to go together. That's the end. That's all the trim. That's all the oak for the trim. Gas laying on the floor. And that's one of the sideboards. You can't really see it all that great. And these are the rest of the sideboards. So there's a lip on the inside here, and then I'll show you how that's going to work later. Actually, I don't even know how it's going to work. And here's my template. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, I wrote a book. It's called Love Letters. If you have any interest in reading a post-apocalyptic, a female-centric post-apocalyptic alien adventure set in the near future, there you go. It's speculative science fiction, but it's not really science fiction. And I can provide you copies of that via e-files, EPUBs. I have some EPUBs. All right, there we go.